Okay, let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who just joined, thank you for joining us today for this webinar. Today we're going to be telling you about the ConnectedSolutions Battery Program, which is a grid services program available in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Our agenda today. So first, I'm going to give you an overview of why you should partner with Enphase for grid services, wherever we offer them in select areas and select utilities in the country. And then we're going to do an overview of this specific program, and we're going to go into some good specific details about how the program works, so you have a really solid understanding, and changes that have happened with this program as well, because it has evolved a bit since it was first launched. And then we're going to go over what the customer journey is like for homeowner as well as for the installer for signing up for this program with Enphase and with the utility. And then, of course, like I said, we're going to have a Q&A to make sure we can answer any questions that you have today. And we'll talk about what your next steps would be to participate in the program with Enphase. My name is Tony Vernetti. I'm a sales trainer at Enphase Energy. I am here to facilitate the webinar and help make sure things go smoothly. I'm going to do the introductions, and I just did the agenda overview and so forth. And then I'm going to hand it over to Steve Lasher, who's the head of business development for grid services, as well as Bachelor Koshik, head of program management for grid services, who makes sure that everything works smoothly from a technical standpoint. They're going to be presenting most of the useful or valuable information today. And we also have Sarah Sawanjandar on the line today, who's head of marketing, who was a key person in getting this webinar organized and set up and promoted. So thanks all of you for joining us today. So why should you participate with Enphase Grid Services? Well, first, the Enphase energy system with IQ batteries was really designed from the ground up, not just for backup power and the things that we think of batteries for, but also to be able to perform the functions needed for grid services. And our team of engineers ensures that the Enphase Grid Services Manager platform makes it really easy for utilities to manage virtual power plants and grid services events. For homeowners, we strive to make their experience best in class. The Enphase app makes the process of onboarding really simple and easy for the homeowner. Homeowners can easily see past event participation. They can also see upcoming events, so they can always know what to expect. And if customers ever do have questions or concerns, they can call Enphase customer support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is very rare in this industry. The Enphase batteries have a 15-year warranty. If you're familiar with our batteries, you might be wondering, I thought it was just 10. Well, beginning on July 1st, all Enphase batteries are going to have a 15-year warranty. The warranty has been extended from 10 to 15 years for all batteries starting July 1st. We also provide excellent support for installers. They too have customer support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they also have visibility over events that have occurred with their customers' batteries as well, so they can provide support for their customers if they get contacted by the homeowner. Enphase offers excellent training and certification programs as well through our online Enphase University, as well as in-person training for hands-on getting hands-on training for installers, especially. Those are available in many places throughout the country. There should be a training center within a relatively short drive of your location there. And we also have a grid services webpage. So if you're interested in finding out more about other grid services programs that Enphase offers, or if you need to quickly find information on this program, you can go to our grid services webpage, and there are links there for all the different programs that we're participating in. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve Lasher to tell you more about the ConnectedSolutions program.
Thanks, Tony. All right, I'll start with a quick summary. A lot of folks are familiar with this program already. It's been around for a couple of years. Obviously, it's a demand response program, so it helps reduce strain on the electric grid during high demand hours. So usually that's, peak summer days, hot temperatures here in the Northeast, and the utility will initiate demand response events during those days when they expect electricity demand to be highest. The program's only eligible to residential customers in National Grid, Eversource, and Rhode Island Energy territories in Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. It does the batteries don't have to be paired with solar, but most of them are. And a couple new things this year. There's a new Rhode Island energy program enrollment flow that we've developed for our Enphase homeowner app. That's new. And also what is coming soon is that the Connecticut portion of the program will be sunsetted and replaced with the Connecticut Energy Storage Solutions program, which Enphase customers can also enroll in. That's pretty much going to sunset at the end of this year. So this summer we'll still have a Connecticut program, but for this webinar, I'm really focusing on Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So how it works, obviously Enphase remotely discharges our customers' batteries during these demand response events called by utilities. We get about a day, 24-hour advance warning, and then we go ahead and communicate that out to the batteries. And these events are usually 1 to 3 hours long. Typically, actually, they've been about 2 or 3. I haven't seen too many 1-hour events. Fund incentive for this program, it's a bring your own device type program, but there's a very substantial performance incentive. The annual incentive is $275 per kilowatt in all of Massachusetts now, and $400 per kilowatt in Rhode Island. And these are some of the best incentives available anywhere in the country. Go to the next slide. A little more on the incentives. So new this year is that I think last year the Eversource Massachusetts incentive was $225. That's now going up to $275. So all customers, all Eversource and National Grid customers will get the $275 per kilowatt per year. And that's a maximum. If you were to take an IQ Battery 10, sort of a maximum of $898 per year for Massachusetts, and over $1,300 in Rhode Island if customers participated in every single grid services event, and if they basically delivered as much power as they could, assuming that they set their reserve stated charge at 20%. Could be even higher if they set the reserve stated charge at 10%, but it would be lower if they set it any higher than 20%. And that's pretty substantial incentive over the years. So it's about $4,500 in Massachusetts over 5 years, and $6,500 in Rhode Island. That's a big incentive for customers who are able to participate. One thing to keep in mind, these incentives are really the responsibility of the electric utility company, so National Grid, Eversource, or Rhode Island Energy. They're the ones who, we share data with them, and then they calculate and approve the incentive, and they're wholly responsible for actually compensating the customers. So if there's issues with payments of any sort, typically it's best to reach out to the utility or Energy Hub. Energy Hub is sort of the program DERMS provider and administrator. In some utilities in some states, I believe you get electronic gift cards last year. In some cases, you might get a check. So it really varies depending on the utility and the state. Another caveat to keep in mind is that customers must be enrolled in the program through the end of the season to be eligible for the incentive payment. So if they basically unenroll from the program before the end of the season, they wouldn't get their check for the previous season or for that season. But caveats on the estimates that I showed above in terms of how much incentive customers can earn are that it really will vary for different customers. It varies depending on size of system. So if you have multiple batteries, you might have a larger incentive. Configuration on how it's set up, how the battery settings and the solar is set up. Internet connectivity, if the internet goes down, there might be some missed events, which would reduce incentives. And then there are other factors like the reserve stated charge, which I mentioned, and I'll go into more detail in the next slide. And just to be clear, that Enphase and other program sponsors like Energy Hub and the utilities do not have any liability for any participants for their loss, damage, or costs or expenses incurred as a result of participation in the program. So we're all in this to try to help customers earn incentives, but at the end of the day, legally binding wise, we don't have that responsibility. We definitely have it from a customer service and customer satisfaction point of view, and we're working really hard to make sure customers can maximize their incentive. Next slide. So this is an example I wanted to show. It's a little complicated, but I'll just kind of walk through the highlights here of why we're really trying to drive home the point that customers need to set their reserve state of charge at between 10 and 20%. And if they go much higher than that, it could really impact the incentive that they receive. So you can see here both the IQ Battery 10 and the 2 IQ 5Ps, which are about the same usable capacity. They're both around 10 kilowatt hours. The new IQ Battery 5P is a 5 kilowatt hour. So if you have two of them together, it's 10 kilowatt hours. But the 5P has a much higher rated power output, so it doubles the amount of power that you could deliver in any given event. But as event power delivered is usually impacted by the length of the event. So if there are 1 hour events, you could really earn a lot more with your IQ 5P, but most of the events are 3 and 2 hours. And then in that case, in the 2 hour events, you would be able to deliver a much larger, well, actually in both cases, primarily in the 2 hour case, you could deliver a much higher level of power to the utility with the 5Ps than you could with the IQ Battery 10. And what happens over time is if you have, let's say, a mix of 50% 3 hour events and 50% 2 hour events, is typically the IQ Battery 5P would deliver more incentive to the customer. So that's good for new customers adding batteries as we're starting to sell more IQ Battery 5Ps into the marketplace. Customers can see a larger incentive, but only if they keep that reserve state of charge to 10 or 20%. If they actually, you can see here in the high reserve SOC case, if they are setting their reserve SOC at 30% or higher, you would make less money. The customer's incentive would actually be less with the IQ 5P. And that's just because the 2 IQ Battery 5Ps are a little bit lower energy usable capacity than an IQ Battery 10. That's the only difference there. But I just want to point out that you lose that advantage of having a high power when you reduce the reserve state of charge. So we really want to encourage customers to keep it in that 10 to 20% reserve state of charge range. Otherwise, they might be missing out on valuable incentives. Next slide. What is the commitment? Basically, there's no requirement that the customer participate. They can opt out at any time, but once they sign up, they are automatically, the batteries will be discharged unless they opt out. And those events, like I said, are usually 2 to 3 hours from 3 to 8 p.m. No more than 60 events each summer. There's no winter season anymore, so that's sort of a change I think happened last year. And that summer season is 4 months, June through September. Again, participation is 100% optional, but if customers do opt out of individual events, they would earn less money in the program. Go to the next slide. So here's an example of how customers can opt out. The first, hopefully you can see that, the first screenshot is of the Enphase homeowner app showing if the customer went into their grid services section and looked at their dashboard, they would see events down at the bottom there. You can see event 1 and you could opt out. You can select opt out. And if the customer did select the opt out, you would see the next set of screenshots there to the right. And it would say, are you sure you want to opt out? And they can say opt out, or they can cancel it. And then if they opt out, they go to that last screenshot there where it says you are opted out. So this can happen. Customers can do this for any scheduled event. They can opt out at any time by using their Enphase homeowner app. However, I should mention there is no pop-up notification that says, there is an event happening tomorrow. They would have to monitor their app to make sure they see a new event and opt out. Next slide. I'm going to go into a few details and specific changes to the program. Now, these are really important. So enrollment, we had some cases in the past. I don't think this happens so much anymore because most installers are pretty aware of the program, but the customer must enroll through the Enphase homeowner app to be eligible. There might be some paperwork that's done up front with the customer, but they still need to go into their app and they need to apply through the app and they need to be approved through the app. So that's really important. The next is battery settings. So we want to make sure that all customers are aware of the settings, and we're changing a couple of them this year. So make sure you're communicating this to your customers so they can maximize their incentives. First is one I've already brought up, which is recommending that they set their reserve stated charge to between 10 and 20%. If they go much higher, they're definitely going to lose out on some incentives. Second, now this is important, is a big change this year. Storm Guard, if it is turned on by customers, it will be automatically overridden during all of the demand response events. So that's new this year. Last year, that wasn't the case. There was no overriding of Storm Guard. And so customers with Storm Guard on sometimes were not participating in demand response events because Storm Guard was activated. Storm Guard can be activated by a lot of different reasons, including heat advisories. So obviously there are a few events with heat advisories, and customer Storm Guard was activated, then they missed out on those events. We don't want that to happen this year. We don't want customers' incentives to be lower than they need to be. We want to be able to maximize those. So that's why we're making this new change. And the reason we feel comfortable making this change is that the utilities will not call events before major storms that could result in widespread outages. So if there's a major storm barreling down here in Rhode Island where I live, could be a hurricane or something like that, or just a major storm, the utilities would not call a demand response event. They're just as concerned about customers having backup power as Enphase and you all are. So with that assurance, we feel comfortable making this change. The third big one here, big change, is that we're going to be setting the customer's battery to full backup mode 12 hours before an event start time. And what this is going to allow is when, say there were a grid services event or a demand response event 2 days in a row, sometimes those batteries are not fully charged in the second or third or fourth day in a row where an event could be called. And so a customer wouldn't be able to participate fully. This can happen, especially in really hot, heat waves that might last multiple days. And so we want customers to be able to participate fully. And we can do that better by setting full backup mode 12 hours in advance. And that full backup mode would prioritize charging of the battery from solar before it starts to use that power to run the home loads. And so we feel like this could help customers be fully prepared for those grid services events and maximize their incentive. And then the battery mode will revert to the original setting once the events are complete. That's true for Storm Guard as well. So we're hopeful that this will increase customers' incentives. We're going to keep monitoring the performance of customers' batteries and communicate to installers if we feel like there needs to be any additional adjustments made. But we're hoping that these changes have a real positive impact on incentives. And then the last thing is just some performance monitoring. As you may already know, customers can use the app, their Enphase Homeowner app, to monitor the events and see where their real-time or total earnings are. And we're hopeful that those earnings will line up with what the checks that they receive from their utility at the end of the year. If they feel like they're not for whatever reason, we do encourage you to reach out to grid services at enphase.com and let us know that you're seeing some issues with any particular events that we can help you troubleshoot. And next slide. So a couple of slides here, a couple of screenshots here that are kind of important. The first one here is the Storm Guard. You can see on the Enphase Homeowner app, a customer can turn on or off Storm Guard. So that's important to note. They can turn it on this season and we will override Storm Guard. So there should not be an issue there with them missing out on grid services event due to Storm Guard being on this year. But just so you know, that's where it is. And also you can see in both the self-consumption and the savings modes, the customer can select the reserve stated charge. This does not impact the grid services reserve stated charge, so they are free to put in whatever they want here. There's a separate area where they can set their battery reserve capacity or reserve stated charge, and that's the second screenshot on the right. That's within the grid services section of the Enphase Homeowner app. And you can see the screenshot here. This particular customer looks like they're trying to set it at 40%, and a little pop-up shows up that basically lets them know that this might impact their incentive because it's higher than what is recommended. So we really want customers to be in the 10 to 20% range. Some customers may want to go to 30. You know, it's entirely up to them, of course, but it will impact their incentive if the higher they set it, the lower their incentive will be. And the last thing over on the right is the performance monitoring that you can see. It shows both what the kilowatts delivered during each event were, as well as what the annual incentive amount is likely to be over time. So again, if anything is looking like it's out of the ordinary there, and you can't troubleshoot it yourselves, you know, you can reach out to us and we can look into it for individual customers so it can be addressed before the end of the season and before incentive checks are finalized. Next slide. So really just to summarize the changes that we discussed, one is Eversource Massachusetts incentive increased, which is great. That's good to go. No change necessary. On our end, really, it's just that customers' incentives will go up for Eversource Massachusetts. That's not the case in Eversource Connecticut, by the way. It's still, I believe, at $225 per kilowatt year. The second is the Rhode Island Energy Program enrollment will be offered in the Enphase homeowner app very soon. We expect this to be the case by the end of the month. Right now, customers in Rhode Island who want to enroll in ConnectedSolutions, I believe, still need to select National Grid as their utility, and then we're manually making the change so that those customers' applications are reviewed by Rhode Island Energy. Excuse me. But by the end of the month, they should be able to select Rhode Island Energy as their utility, and it will automatically be sent to the right utility. Excuse me again. Third, StormGuard will be automatically overridden just during the grid services events, and the battery will be set to full backup mode 12 hours before the event start times until the end of the event. This does require us to make some changes in the program, which we're expecting to do by the end of the month. We also are planning to update the customer terms and conditions to make these changes very clear, and we'll be offering that on the Enphase homeowner app, as well as in emailing installers or perhaps customers about this change and putting that change to the customer T's and C's on our webpage as well. There's also going to be a number of additional changes to our webpage to make it more clear what the requirements are and terms and conditions are. And that will be likely not happening by the end of this month. More likely by the end of July, we'll have all the webpage updates and everything else complete. And then the final thing, as I mentioned, is just that Eversource Connecticut program is going to be replaced by Connecticut Energy Storage Solutions program. I believe customers will still be able to participate all year and maybe even enroll, but honestly, you know, if you do any work in Connecticut, the Connecticut Energy Storage Solutions is going to be the program moving forward. So it's likely most customers will prefer that program. It does have an upfront incentive in addition to the same annual performance incentive in Connecticut. Next slide. All right, that's all I have. And I think Kaushik is going to walk us through the customer journey.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so for the ConnectedSolutions program, so as it's a BYOD program, right? So we do not expect any contract directly with the utilities in the first place. So installers can commission the battery as usual. So once the battery installation is complete, and then customer can download Enphase app from this on the smartphone. So they'll be getting the electric credentials and everything. So now the customers has to enroll themselves into this program using the Enphase app, NHO app. So they can navigate to services, which is located in the menu, and under the services, grid services section is located. So once they select the grid services section, they land on the grid services page where they first need to select their utility. So selecting the utility is one important thing for the customers because we do not have enough information to decide what's the respective utility for a certain customer. So once the utility is selected, they can find the program details. So in the program details, all the incentive related information, the event-related information, the benefits, and how the battery behaves are clearly explained. And they can sign up for the program from there directly. So upon sign up, an application page will get loaded. So there, all the enlightened fields are auto-populated. So they just need to enter their account number and submit the application. So once during the submission, we also take the signature of the customer, and they have to accept the customer T's and C's. So upon submission, it comes to Enphase. So Enphase automatically validates certain fields in the application, and if everything looks good, then we submit the application to utility for approval. Utility then reviews the application, and if they are approved, then the site will be enrolled into the program. So it's a complete straightforward in the app. So menu, services, grid services section, and then you can go to program details page, sign up, fill the application details, provide the signature, and submit the application. And from there, we will take care of the complete application. So in case of rejections by the utility, so we'll reject the application stating the reason, and the customers will be able to resubmit these applications from the Enphase app directly in the same location. Can we go to the next slide too? So this is the complete end-to-end enrollment flow. So first we provide a grid services banner when a new program is launched. And the second page is where they're selecting the utility provider. And once utility provider is selected, they can find the program. So upon click on program, they land on the program page, and they can find the sign up for free option there. Click on sign up for free, then the application form loads with all the details auto-populate as an account number. Provide that account number, provide the signature, click on sign, and then submit the application. And on the last screenshot here, you can see the application status will also be shared with the home. So upon approval, the customer will be enrolled into the program. Tony, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so once approval is complete, so they can view the dashboard page for the same program. So this dashboard has all the incentive related widgets, the battery related widgets. So the total earnings to date, we capture the complete earnings under the program for all the previous seasons, and the accrued earnings and the estimated earnings widgets in row 2 are for this particular season. And then the battery reserve is where they can set the battery reserve for the event. So we do not, as Steve mentioned before, we do not update the reserve SOC user has set for a certain battery mode. We just use this reserve during the event time. We respect what the homeowner is setting here, as this is based on performance incentive. But we request the homeowners to set it to 10% or 20% or 30% at max to avoid getting less incentives. And then the event details section shows all the ongoing and upcoming events, and they can opt out from the event as stated before. And the history of events is also presented month-wise, and for each month they can view all the list of events and their power discharged for each event also. So once the season is complete, we also share this data with the utilities, the event performance data, and based on that, they will be calculating the incentives and sharing the performance incentives with the partner offline. Next slide. Yeah, I think that's on the journey and the Enphase app experience.
Great, thank you very much, Kaushik. And I assume we're not doing a live demo this time, since the app screens are very clear, kind of as far as the whole journey goes. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. So now I'm going to bring up some questions here that were posted while we're doing the presentation. So the first, we actually got a few questions about the warranty, because this, I think, kind of surprised folks. It was just actually put on the website, I believe yesterday or the day before. So I wanted to be clear that the 15-year warranty for Enphase batteries is not a retroactive warranty, meaning batteries that have been installed over the past few years have the warranty that that was in place when they were activated or set up. The warranty is only for new systems that are where the battery is activated during the commissioning process after July 1st of 2023. And a question about re-enrollment came in from Kara toward the beginning. You may have addressed this at that earlier in the webinar, Steve, but the question is, do customers have to re-enroll each year?
No, good question. Once they're enrolled one time, they are good. There shouldn't be any need to re-enroll.
Next question, actually another question from Kara. Does a customer get an email notification about upcoming events, and then they could go to the app and opt out if desired?
Kaushik, I'll let you kind of provide detail here, but as of now, there's no email notification or in-app notification. Kaushik, do you have any additional information about upcoming capabilities?
That's correct, Steve. So currently in the grid services section, user can find the event details, but in-app notification or emails are not sent right now. But it is in our roadmap to include the Enphase app notifications for the events in near future. So may not be possible in this season, but definitely by next season we'll be able to do that.
Great, thank you. Question from Todd. If they opt out, then, if they opt out, then next event opt in, are they still eligible for the whole season?
Yes. They don't have, once they opt out, they only opt out per event. So they opt out once for one event, then they're going to be automatically scheduled to participate in the next event unless they opt out again. So they have to opt out. They're going to be discharged every event unless they specifically opt out for each event.
All right, great.
And there's a difference. Sorry, I just want to, in case there's some question there. I mean, if they unenroll from the program altogether, that's a different story. Then they're out of the program for, unless I guess they could potentially re-enroll, but that's quite a process to unenroll and then re-enroll. So typically we wouldn't expect that. I don't think we've had too many unenrollments in general because it's a lucrative program and not very onerous for customers, but that's a separate issue. And if they unenroll, they're unenrolled for as long as they stay unenrolled, unless they re-enroll.
Right, question from Mike. Is that option to change the SOC or state of charge for events in the app currently? They're not able to see it in the customer app. Kaushik, is that a feature that has not yet been implemented, or maybe, could you explain why they're not able to find it?
So they should be available in the grid services section under the dashboard. There's a battery reserve widget which user can click and set the SOC for the event. In the menu services, grid services, they should be able to view this option once they're enrolled into the book.
So Mike, if you're still having difficulty, please contact us through the grid services email, and we'll make sure that we can help you with making this change to the setting. And that's gridservices@enphase.com. Question from Kara. To clarify, can a homeowner enroll via their Enphase page on a web browser, or is it only an option via a phone app?
Yeah, it will be possible via both. So it's not just Enphase app, it can be done via web browser as well.
All right, so either a web browser or the app.
Right.
And question from Todd, I believe this is about warranty. What are the plans to extend past 5 years? Todd, I apologize. When you typed this in, I didn't realize, I didn't make note of what we were talking about at that moment. If you could type the question again and be more specific about whether you're talking about the warranty or something related to the grid services program. And question from Roy. If homeowners enroll midsummer, will they only get partial credit for that year since kilowatt rating based on average of all kilowatt throughout the year? Would it be in their best interest to sign up during the winter months to get a full 5 summer seasons?
Yeah, they will get prorated if they sign up in the middle of the season. So they would be, end of the season, they only participate in 3 events. They're going to get a pretty small incentive, 3 out of, 50 events, let's say, would not be very big. In terms of, I know that some utilities are offering it for 5 years. So I think that question is, would they get the full, would that count as their season, that first season? I actually don't know the answer to that. And Kaushik, if you know, please weigh in. Otherwise, we'll have to check in with the utilities and our Energy Hub to see what the right answer is there. Kaushik, you don't know the answer to that, do you?
No, Steve, we need to check with Energy Hub.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to find the answer and get back with you.
All right, thanks, you guys. Steve, are you able to open up the questions to see? There have been a few questions typed in by Todd that are related. In general, the question is about the program being available past 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, except for, I did used to work for National Grid, and a lot of times these things are approved by, I think in this case, it's like the Energy Efficiency Council, and then ultimately the PUC, and sometimes they just can't guarantee a program beyond that. So I'll have to ask the question specifically to see if I can get an answer. My guess is they can, as long as they can continue to show that there are net benefits of the program, then that will be extended and approved. But as you may know, these things are hard to calculate and predict sometimes. It could be that the program's costs go up, benefits go down, in which case they might say, all right, we got to adjust the incentive. But assuming that's not the case, which I personally don't think it should be the case, as long as we continue to show good performance of these batteries in the program, I think there's a good chance it could be extended. But I'll see if I can get a better answer from Energy Hub and the utilities and get back with you on that as well.
Great. So Kaushik, a few questions have come in regarding where to set the battery state of charge. Is there a document or a web page perhaps where this is explained, where there are like more specific instructions on how to change these settings? Because it looks like a few people are looking in the app and they're not able to find this setting in the app. And for example,
I think it's not captured in the web page yet, Tony, but it should be available in the grid services section under menu and services. So it's not the typical battery settings page. So under the menu services, grid services, you'll find the details about the Connected Solutions program. The site is enrolled, and there we can set the battery reserve.
Kaushik, perhaps we could share a screenshot. Either if it's available, we could share it right now, or if not, we can follow up by email with screenshots of where this is in the app.
Yeah, it is in slide 16 now, Tony.
Oh, okay.
Slide 21 also shows, I think, where you would click on the battery reserve, right? 21. Is that right, Kaushik?
Yeah, that's right. It's mentioned in both the places. Yeah, so here, the first page talks about the typical battery settings page where you set the reserve SOC at a system level. This is irrespective of grid services. But the second screenshot here, so this is in the Connected Solutions grid services page under menu services and grid services. And there is a widget called battery reserve. So the user can click on that widget and set the battery reserve. And this will be applicable only during the events.
All right, hopefully that that clears it up. For those of you,
we also go to slide 21, you can see the widget before the little set battery reserve comes up. So on the first screenshot there, this is sort of what it would look like, and that's the button Kaushik was referring to there in the middle on the left, battery reserve, right, Kaushik?
Yeah, that's right, Steve.
Clicked on that, then you could change it, and if you tried to go above 30%, it would pull up that little informational thing that says if you go above 30%, you could reduce your incentive and things like that. So that's sort of the first screen you would see, and then you see the other screen that we just looked at when you click on it.
All right. Well, that is it for the questions that were typed in. I'm going to talk just a little bit about certification and next steps, and we'll keep an eye on to see if there are any additional questions typed in. So if there's anyone in the session today that has not installed any Enphase systems yet, I want you to know that we have excellent online training available through Enphase University. It is completely free of charge. And if you're installing any system, any Enphase system with backup capabilities or a battery system, that some batteries can be installed without backup, you do need to get certified as an installer of Enphase systems. Again, that's free of charge, available 100% online at Enphase University. We also offer design training. So if your company, again, is installing Enphase storage systems, at least one person at the company also has to get certified as a designer of Enphase systems. We also offer a basic Enphase solar installation certification. It's not required to install systems, but it's a nice little badge to have for your company. And we also offer Enphase storage sales certification. Again, this is not a required certification for anything. It's just for salespeople to be able to kind of put that badge in their signature or resume saying that they're certified by Enphase to sell Enphase storage systems. And we also offer hands-on training in select areas of the country. All of these can be signed up for at university.enphase.com, including hands-on training. Here are a couple of useful links for you. We have a link to get Enphase storage certified there across the top. That is basically an overview of the requirements, and there'll be links there to Enphase University. We also have a LinkedIn group for grid services where you can go and kind of share your experiences and communicate with other people that are participating, as well as Enphase experts will be responding to any posts or questions that are there. And then a link to the Enphase Grid Services dedicated webpage there at the bottom. And our contact email. So if you have any questions about grid services, any of the grid services programs that we're offering, please send those to this email address right here, gridservices@enphase.com. And we'll make sure to get back to you in a timely manner with a response. One more question came in from Roy. This one's for you, Steve. Since you used to work for NGrid, do you think the utilities should be adding peak power output rating of the battery? For example, 5.7 kilowatts AC for the Enphase 10T to the total solar kilowatt AC rating. It's causing lots of utility requests for transformer upgrades. I know that was a long question. Did you catch that, Steve, or do you want me to repeat it?
Yep, I got it. And actually, Nick, if you're still on, Nick Stroud is our FAE for the area, so he may have to help me out here. But I would think if this is an issue, perhaps something we can talk more about offline and get to the bottom of. Perhaps there's something we can do with power export limits in order to prevent, transformer upgrades, or we might be able to come up with other solutions, either currently or future solutions to prevent this. Yeah, utilities are quite conservative, so I guess I'm not too surprised to see that this is required. And now the question is, can we do a combination of some kind of technical or software solution, or maybe even talk to the utility directly to see if we can sell them on the idea of our solutions if we don't think that's going to fly without their input. So maybe I can help out, having previously worked there. I know some people, but maybe if we go together as us with our installers and talk about what we think we can do here to save customers, we'd be happy to try to do that. Nick, any more thoughts on this question than what I already said? Oh,
I'll have to leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
sorry about that.
Yeah, if you have any additional questions on that topic, of course, just email them to us and we'll get back to you.
I also reread Todd's question there, Tony, and
Oh, okay.
he was asking about the 5 years, and I said, you know, it depends on what the utility can get approval for. I do think there will be some program after the 5-year period. Again, this is my opinion only, and I can't guarantee that, unfortunately. I will still try to get an answer from Energy Hub and the utilities. They probably will say the same thing. We can't guarantee it, but given how successful it is, these programs have been here in the Northeast, I would suspect that, you know, they would continue with the program in some fashion, even if maybe incentives go down at some point in time. But again, we'll work hard to make sure those incentives continue at least at the level they're at now. They are some of the best in the country, so hopefully everyone out there can take advantage of that and get as many batteries enrolled as possible. So more on that later once I hear back from the other sponsors about the duration of the program.
All right, thank you, Steve. We just had one more comment from Mike along the same lines. He says that we've run into that issue, but that 5.7 rating is for off-grid only, so the spec sheets should be adjusted for that. So I think what Mike is saying basically is that, you know, peak power, which is the 5.7 kilowatt rating for our batteries, only applies to systems that are disconnected from the grid, right? It's that peak power for backup purposes. But for grid connected systems, they discharge only at their continuous power, not at peak. That's a great point. So perhaps in our next iteration of spec sheets, we could be specific about that 5.7 rating. That maybe that would help.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. I might have misread the original question then, but yeah, should more likely be based on the continuous power output, 3.84 kilowatts, not the peak. So I'll talk to Nick more offline about that as well. We'll get back with you.
All right. All right. Well, that is all for all the questions that came in. So we'll go ahead and thanks everybody for joining us today. We will make a recording of this available on the Enphase YouTube training channel, and we'll share with this group so you can review the information if you'd like, or share with colleagues that you'd like to have the information. Thanks again for joining, and have a wonderful day.